all my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel, where we embrace our femininity, increase our womanly value, and celebrate our brothers. So join me on our feminine journey to learn, heal, and grow. Hey everybody, give me 2 seconds. Real quick. Okay, how y'all doing? Y'all can hear me? Everything cool? Thank you so much, Miss Veronica, for kicking off the contributions. I appreciate you with the $5. I appreciate each and every contribution. Don't forget to
like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you, Ty Boxing said women nowadays are using social media as therapy when they should just see a therapist. That among other things. But what I wanted to talk about was a popular internet couple, Kristy. I never knew their names, Kristy and Desmond Scott. And Kristy was the main one making content. Her content consisted of, it was like comedic. The content was like comedic. Most of it, or most of what I ever saw, was content to where she would have on heels and quote unquote be testing out the heels. Yes, that's the shoe lady. She would be testing out the heels, and then she would be running all around and doing flips and all that kind of stuff. And you know what I'm saying, it was kind of funny or whatever. And that was like the bulk of the content that I have always seen from her. So her content itself was not salacious. It was not sexual in nature. It was comedic in nature. However, recently they have hit the news because she filed for divorce because apparently he quote unquote had infidelity, which he came to the internet to admit to having. Now, from what I have understood, they were like high school or like school sweethearts, like 13, 14 years old together. And, you know, they grew up together. Because if you with somebody at 13, 14, you grew up with that person. Okay. Y'all have watched each other be immature. Y'all have watched each other mature into adulthood, you know, and all of the ups and downs that go with that. And so it is interesting and in a sad way to see them not be together, although I didn't follow them, and I certainly did not follow their like their relationship or anything like that. I still realize that they've been together, and I don't like to hear about divorces. With that being said, even though both of them admit that the infidelity was on his end, I want to draw this out as a lesson, a marital lesson about how a marriage can be destroyed. One that should have been together. Right? How not just social media, and I'm going to touch that too, but when the connections are no longer there, when people feel like their needs are no longer being met, by their spouse, they will eventually look for it elsewhere in whatever form that they look for it. So I'm not going to give too much of a lecture prior to. I'm going to read a quick little article or whatnot. Just to catch people up a little bit. All right. This is sort of almost an overview of things. Desmond Scott has been married to Kristy Scott for more than a decade before she filed for divorce. Okay, news broke in January that Kristy filed from Desmond on December the 30th. The doc state there is no chance of reconciliation, with the report noting that Kristy and Desmond will soon stop living together as husband and wife. Desmond went on to break his silence, sharing that he made choices that he was not proud of while working through his split from Kristy. All right. Desmond is the father of two. Desmond shares sons Vance and Weston with Kristy. Okay. He is a chef. Desmond, I'm kind of skipping through just so you can understand. Desmond frequently shares recipe videos and clips of him cooking to his social media page. He uploads on Instagram a video of him calmly pouring syrup on a plate while the camera panned to numerous dirty bowls and cooking utensils beside the sink. The perfect shot versus reality. Okay. He said, I'm a messy cook. I can't lie. Once I get going, I don't stop till I'm done. But then I have a heap of everything to clean. All right. And so Desmond Scott responded to Kristy's divorce filing. I'm skipping around a little bit. Obviously, so I know this news has been disappointing for many. I'm truly sorry for the hurt that it has caused. He wrote, Kristy is the mother of my children, and that always comes first. I remain fully committed to being an active, present, and loving parent to our boys, as I have always been. Desmond claimed that he and Kristy faced challenges and made sincere efforts to work through them. Towards the end of 2025, I wanted to separate, and I had conversations with her regarding this. He wrote noting that he made choices he's not proud of while navigating it. I took responsibility for it. I shared this with her directly and personally. Ultimately, we decided to divorce. I asked for privacy and compassion as we navigate through the difficult chapter. Okay. So that's just, I'm going to stop sharing this. But this is her for those who this is somewhat of the content, what the content consisted of. I'm cutting it off because of the sound, because of the music. So the little boy is mocking his mom. As you can see here, her and Desmond getting a divorce after 11 years of marriage. Another reminder that a relationship can look perfect on the outside, but without God at the center, appearances mean nothing. Only He can truly sustain a marriage. Okay. And then I thought this one was a really interesting shot. She pops out after filing for divorce from Desmond Scott. Right? And I'm purposely muted it. We don't need the sound. But this, just these first few, tell me a lot. It tells me a lot, which is why I wanted to come and talk about it. Not so much for gossip news. I don't necessarily want to talk about the ins and outs of their relationship or even the so-called infidelity. What I want to talk about is what led to it from a more obvious standpoint. There is an upside and a downside to when content creators use their life or their family as part of their content. Lifestyle content, child rearing content, marriage couple content, whether it's comedic in nature, whether it's serious in nature, whatever, it doesn't matter the nature of that content. When there is lifestyle content, especially if that content takes off, it only becomes a potential issue when the content takes off. When the checks start getting fat and the lifestyle changes and the content becomes the bread and butter upon which the family feeds. Now, that in and of itself is not an issue, except when you are making lifestyle content and that content takes off, you now have an obligation to continue this content. Because if the content has changed your life monetarily, you can quit your day job. You start making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, maybe on into the millions from content. It's not a lot of people that's not going to keep doing that content. Okay, that's number one. I don't care what the nature of the content is. Okay, if somebody starts making millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars doing online content, whether it's gaming, whether it's comedy, whether it's any of that, there are not a lot of people that is going to stop doing that content. It's like finding a job that pay you that much. A lot of people not going to leave that job. Even if the job gets stressful, they're not going to leave that job because they're not going to be able to replace that income with anything else that's going to give them a comparable income. Okay? So when you have lifestyle content that revolves around what you do with your children, what you do with your spouse, what happens in your home, what happens in your personal day-to-day life, what starts to happen is the money comes in, but that's when the breakdown starts. Not because of the money. The breakdown begins because the line gets blurred between what we're actually doing and what's content. Since our lifestyle is content, every moment is an opportunity to capture content. Stay with me. So now it behooves you to keep a camera rolling in your home. Because you never know when a viral moment, a funny moment happens. Either that or you have to create the moments because that's the content. And the content is how you eat. Okay? Stay with me. This usually ends up devastating a marriage and breaking a family because the continued strain on the people that are included in the content but not the star of the content, and they're not the ones creating the content necessarily, it starts to strain them. I don't want to be on all the time. The person that's making the content don't want to be on all the time either. But if I don't post it consistently, know what them checks start doing? Because the internet will forget you. The internet will forget you. So she was the one making the comedic content, but he was also making content. He's a chef, so he was making content about cooking. So imagine a household where both people are now making online content, so their household is always performing, whether they want to or not. Because creating content is not simple. For people who do not create content, especially for a living, it is not nothing simple about it. It's nothing simple about it. People sometimes will ridicule a content creator and tell them to go and get a job. No. First of all, no. Secondly, it is a job. Okay? It is a job. It's a job. When I get in front of this camera, these shows don't make themselves. They don't make themselves. Okay? The show is not magical. There was equipment that needs to be bought, that needs to be maintained, upkept. Then my creative has to come through. I have to have subject matters that are valued by my listeners. There's editing, there's posting, there's there you have to be consistent. So there's nothing about content creation, especially on a particular level, that is not work. There's hobby level, but that's when you're not making no money. If you're doing it as a hobby and you don't have no intention of making it big or anything, it is a hobby. And you don't have to dedicate no real time or effort to it. If you start making content at a certain level, it ceases to be a hobby and it is work. Now it is work. It has crossed over into work. Okay? So it is now work. And work has to be done. Because if you don't work, you don't eat. Okay? So she's making content based around, it includes her family. If it didn't include her family, that actually would be a bit better. But her viewers became interested in the family dynamics. Those are some of her highest viewed videos that included her husband, that included the children. You know what I'm saying? That was the comedic part of it. She's doing all these antics with the high heels at the high heel store, and he's quote unquote caught off guard that she's doing it. And it's like, oh my God, you're doing that was part of the shtick. Okay, which is nothing wrong with it, but you have to have control. The control that I speak of is the separation between what is content and what's us. Because anytime there is no differentiation between my work and my family life, my private life, and what I do for my profession and things of that nature, when those lines are completely blurred, that is where we start getting into the weeds. Because we presented ourselves like a happy couple. So we got to be a happy couple. Whether we're happy today or not, whether we had an argument last night or not, I guarantee you that a lot of the arguments and strife was the root of that was the content creation. And the reason why it wasn't resolved by a simple, okay, baby, I won't make content no more. If the content is bothering everybody, then I won't make content anymore. The reason why that wasn't the immediate nor the direct solution is because where we getting $1 million? If my content generate $30,000 or $40,000 a month, we ready to take that hit? Or are we going to quote unquote work around or try to find some other solution other than icing the content, because we both make content and we see we live wealthy because of it. So the same thing that's tearing us apart has also made us wealthy together. How do you resolve that? How do you resolve that little quandary? Because really, what you would have to say is that the money that we have, you would need to have made. This is how I see a way out of that. To make a 5-year plan, a 5-year financial plan that would end up where nobody has to do content. A financial plan that would allow them to invest their money in various ventures, businesses, whatever the case, however you want to do it, to where though that income could be made not with this content. Because making this content is problematic between us. Because I can't hardly talk to you without a camera. Or when we have conversations, you know, we're at each other's throats. We're not spending the time together without this content situation or that being in the back of our minds whenever we go out, whenever we have a family time, whenever we're, you know what I'm saying? Like it's always got to be something to do with it. Well, it got to be edited, or we got to think about it in some capacity. How can we put it down? We need to be able to completely put it down and step back from it and don't touch it for a while. Find a financial road that is going to give you the same income, because now you have the money to invest in things that's going to give you income, real estate, whatever. Invest that money, give it 5 or so years to grow so that you and become consistent income so that you can know that check is coming whether I get on this internet or not. And then work your way off the internet so that if you did want to do content, it would go back to being a hobby and not its job. Put it back in its hobby space. Put it back in its hobby space. Don't let it come out of the hobby space. As long as in the hobby space, it's safe. It's safe over there. Once it becomes something that everybody got to do, there was this lady and her situation became like national news. She was on YouTube for a long time. Her name was Ruby Franke. And she was doing lifestyle content. She was doing like stay-at-home mom content, right? How to get your kids ready, you know, how to fix all the lunches and how to clean when you get, because she had like 6-7 kids or something like that. Well, no, maybe not 6 or 7 kids. I might be thinking about something else. She had at least 5. Okay. And this happened a couple of years ago. And she ended up going to prison because all of that foolishness led to a divorce, which led to her going into this like cult-like situation. And then it led to her child like coming out of the place. They was like being held hostage and abused. And the child was like emaciated, came to a neighbor's house, and then that's how the news broke. It was a whole trial and everything. But the reason I bring her up is because that started as internet content. And it didn't blow up at first. And she was just doing mommy stuff, right? Mommy stuff. That she was just on here. She was with her kids, feeding them lunch, that kind of stuff. Her day-to-day stuff. Putting it online. Her husband didn't care. You know what I'm saying? He was out making money. They wasn't poor or nothing like that. He didn't care. She was finding something to do. But then the content started making money. And it became enough money to retire the husband. She started earning enough money through social media that her husband could retire. He did not have to go and do, I forgot what he did for work. He didn't have to do it anymore. The trade-off was that every moment, just about, that happened in their house was content. The husband got sick of it. The children got sick of it because they grew up in the camera. And they got mad about it. I don't always want to be on. I'm not always happy. I'm not always... No. The oldest son started like, because you know a boy gonna get tired of that kind of foolishness. And I don't want to do that. Get that camera out of my face. It became content that the children felt was humiliating to them, content that her husband felt was humiliating to him. They ended up getting a divorce, but that was even more so because she got hooked up with this other lady in like a whole cult. And that cult and the teachings of that cult made them go apart. And she was going with what the lady was talking about, ended up getting mad at her husband. They ended up breaking up. He didn't want to break up. He wanted to get her out of the clutches of this other lady. Couldn't quite do it. They ended up getting a divorce. He left the house. She got all kind of restraining orders, this, that, and the third. So he couldn't really come around because he was trying to figure out where was his kids. He wanted his kids. Now his oldest kids was like gone to college and stuff, but it was the little ones he was worried about. But I'm not gonna get into the weeds of that. You can look her up and watch. They got little documentaries and stuff like that. But my point is that the content creation, lack of being able to be connected with each other, it can't be content all the time. That disconnect, if he did step out on her, that was how that snowball got to that place. I'm not connected with you. You're the person I do content with. And that's not to say they didn't love each other. Because you don't be that long with each other since childhood and growing up together and having them kids and stuff like that and don't love each other. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that there's no love. But the reason why Miss Kristy has not stopped and she's just sort of pivoting her content is because she cannot stop. Neither can Desmond. He can't stop either. His TikTok shot up by millions of subscribers. So now he's getting an equal bag. Exactly. Both of them are addicted to it. They could not figure out how to make that work for them and not against them. Because neither of them stopped making content. Through all of this, neither of them stopped making content. Nobody chilled out. Nobody said, man, let's have a time where we wake up and step back. We can afford to step back from this. Both of them keep making content. She back outside. I just showed you that. She back outside. She on the pop out. She done popped out. Okay. This is content. This is content. Somebody said it because the show don't stop. Now it's food. Now, you know what I'm saying? Now she gonna post, just her. Now she gets to post her single journey. Do you understand? Now she gets to post her divorced woman journey, finding herself. This is the rebrand. It has to be rebranded now, not stopped. He's gonna rebrand too. He's rebranding as well. He's gonna focus on his chef things and the food content, because food content is big, especially if you can get the right shot and you know what you're doing, and that food look good at the end. Food content is gold. And I'm finding myself content is also gold. So they're gonna continue to get the bag with content. That's what they're going to do. Never stopped to mourn the death of their marriage. Could not find the way out. If you wasn't never going to stop doing content, either of you should have stayed together. This is the trick and the trap of the shaitan. Should have stayed together. Because neither of you stopped. If content was the crux of the matter, which I believe it. I believe all of the stuff that got tied into the content making was part of the problem. If you're not going to stop doing that, find a way through it. Could not find a way through it because shaitan blinds you. If you stop, then where you going to get the money from? He just wants you to stop. She just wants you to stop. Because where you going to get the money then? Y'all got this house together. And how you going? A way to break the marriage. I told you that shaitan's best thing that he does, his most critical thing that he does, and his favorite thing to do, is the breaking of marriage. The breaking of marriage. He loves to break the bond of marriage. And he will work many, many long years to do so. Social media relationships, especially when they become the focal point of the content is not any different than relationships that are played out on reality television. Even if those relationships are genuine in terms of the two people like each other, it's gonna be a problem because everything is filmed and the couple does not get an opportunity to address each other in privacy and make decisions that's best for their relationships because of the optics. It's the optics of it all. Well, we're not going to look like a certain kind of couple. Well, if we mad at each other, then we still got to be mad. If we on the outs, that's good. That's tea and all that foolishness. But I'm not going to stay here long. Matter of fact, I'm going to end it off. She is. She's going to be very sorry. Both of them are going to be sorry. Y'all grew up with each other. She's not the only one that's going to regret that. He's gonna regret it too. They grew up with each other. They're intertwined in a way that other couples are not. They went through childhood, that teen time, that early 20s time. They went through all that together. Are there Jehovah's Witnesses? But anyway, I'm going to get on up out of here. Jump down in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you have not. Once again, I'm your host, the Crimson Cure, and this was my perspective. Bye-bye, Crimsonites.